And welcome to the Real Estate Show on KCMX. March 31st is our date. Pete Belcaster and Joe Brent, the real estate guys, with you here today at KCMX. We're both real estate brokers with John L. Scott in Southern Oregon, and we get together with you once a week here on KCMX to talk about all sorts of real estate related issues and topics. And well, you know, we've still never reached the limit of what is out there in terms of real estate issues and topics. They continue, of course, to baffle us sometimes, don't they, Joe?
It's an ever-changing market. That's what keeps people coming back for information every week, I think, and keeps our listeners eager for more.
Yeah. Well, one guy who's been here before is Don McCoy. Don is a broker with John L. Scott and is a former radio guy. We used to spend back in the day here in this same building, wasn't it? Here
all those loyal listeners out there at KCMX might remember the real McCoy.
Yeah. I don't even want to ask you how long ago that was, but
1992 to 1997.
That's not that long ago.
I'm a lot smarter now.
Anyway, today, of course, you become a real estate broker. And how's the market doing? Tell people what you think, what you're seeing out there. Here is, March, April, May, the three busy months. So what are you seeing, Don?
I am seeing so much activity right now. It's not even funny. I've sold all my listings except for one. I have one pending, so that's 2 listings. That's all that's left. I got a few more on the horizon, but things are cooking. There's a lot of out-of-state business coming in. Yeah. Oregon is still going to be in the top destination move-in state in the country, I think.
Well, we've been that way for a while, and that's you think that's happening, right?
Yeah, I know it's happening.
Is it just? It's not just retirees, though, right? I mean, it's more than just that.
People are fleeing California in droves, and some of them actually filter into Southern Oregon.
Yeah, well, Joe and I were down in Southern California last weekend, and every time we go down there, you just marvel about how would you ever want to live? You never want to live there, the traffic, all those kind of things. And you're right, people are coming. I mean, there's no question about that.
And the answer is no, and that's why people come.
That's why they want to come here. Yeah. So you're seeing that all over there.
Oh yeah, and when they get here, they're early wherever they go.
Early. Oh yeah, because it doesn't take us long to get there.
Yeah, you get clear across town in 10, 15 minutes.
All right. Now you brought Jim Reiland here today.
I sure did. I got to tell folks about Jim Reiland. We go way back. I met him through my Oregon Green Expo. You were
the Green
exhibitor. And Jim Reiland is a straw bale builder. Now, folks, you might know that a long time ago, back in the Midwest, when things were cold, people would stack up hay and live in it. Well, nowadays, it's very sophisticated science, and Jim, Mini Hands Builder, is here to tell us how that whole construction goes. And I just encourage folks to call a few friends, some family, people that are interested in straw bale homes, because you're going to hear from the best of the best. He's given presentations, PowerPoint presentations on how to build straw bale homes.
I think Jim
Good
said,
to have you here, Jim.
Yeah, you said there's like 45, if you know, of straw bale homes in Jackson County right now, right? Correct?
Yeah, at least 45.
About 45.
The ones I've either worked on or been in on a tour or know builders who've done it.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like, I don't know if that's a lot or not, but they've been around for a while, right, Don?
Yeah, since it got cold in the Midwest.
Well,
and they made hay.
I mean, getting out here.
Well, actually, straw building started back in the 1890s after baling equipment was invented, and farmers in Nebraska, being driven by necessity, took the new baling equipment and made building blocks out of their wheat fields, what was left over after they harvested the wheat. So it's pretty straightforward. So these buildings have been around for a long time, but there was a revival in the 1980s or so, and that's really when it took off in California, Arizona, and New Mexico, and started to come up to Oregon.
And you just basically use straw. I mean, bales of straw, right? I mean, you're actually that's what the material is.
A certain type of straw.
A certain type.
Not just any old straw.
It actually is any old grain straw, as long as it's a certain density and a certain moisture content. It has to be dry enough and dense enough to do what it's supposed to do, which is basically build a wall.
Yeah.
And in our area, it's mostly used as an insulation. It's not supporting the roof loads for the most part, although it can. So we still have posts and beams in the structures, but for the most part, it's an insulation, a solid perimeter insulation around the structure.
Yeah, I was just in a straw bale home a couple of weeks ago showing it to some clients, actually. It was 2 straw bale homes up Little Applegate that are still for sale. And if anybody has been in a straw bale home, you never experience anything like it. It's just beautiful.
Well, I've only been in one. I mean, there was one that was on a tour, on the Ashland MLS tour. But that's been probably several years ago. because you don't see them often. And I was telling Jim before we went on the air, they don't come up for sale very often. You don't really see straw bale homes for sale, meaning people must get them and hang on to them.
Well, I think when you build a beautiful building, people fall in love with them, and they tend not to want to part ways. So the only times I've been brought in to remodel structures after the original builder owner has moved on, and it's often 20 years later.
Yeah. Now we talk a lot about net zero construction, right, Don? I mean, we've been on tours with those. We've seen that's kind of the latest buzz, net zero. In other words, you basically don't have any utility costs, right? I mean, that's more of the thing. Are straw bale homes the same? Can you also build them to net zero standards?
Yes, and there's another component to that net zero, and that's you have to generate your own power. So any structure that you build is going to require some inputs. But if you have solar or wind power or some other form of power coming in, and you have zero or very low energy requirements, then you can have a net zero structure, and straw fits right into that. And I think it goes a step further because the energy that goes into the building material is much, much lower than if you're using any of the materials where you have to rearrange a lot of molecules to have them be efficient. So foams and fiberglass and other types of conventional materials, while they're great insulators, the inputs to make them great insulators are very high.
Their carbon footprint is bigger to make the material.
Exactly.
And straw bales would be more natural in that kind of thing.
But we have R value and that resistance to heat and cold. What is the typical R value of a straw bale home?
So the R value depends on how you orient the bales, and the bales come in a kind of a limited number of thicknesses because the baling equipment is only 3 or 4 sizes in the United States. So typically a wall can be either 15 inches or 18 inches or 24 inches wide. You'll notice that none of these are skinny walls. In fact, that's one of
They're thick walls. They're all like a foot, aren't they? About a foot thick.
At least a foot thick.
And
15 inches is 15 inches is the minimum because that's the way the largest bale can be turned sideways and be 15 inches.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's how you do that.
Right.
All right.
So the R value is anywhere between 1.5 to almost 2 R per inch. So its resistance to heat flow is largely dependent on that thickness. So the overall wall system is going to be R27 to R36, depending on how thick your bales are.
And people can choose that, I guess, if they want that type of thing. But you seal them up like you do on a net zero home and have to have air exchanges into these places and everything, correct?
You probably will if you do a really good job sealing. Yes.
Yeah, because you want to. You want to have that airflow exchange.
And the walls are plastered on both sides, and that's part of the building's performance because it's not just the R value, the insulation value, it's the thermal mass of the plasters that once the heat from your fireplace or your heating system gets into the air, it soaks into that masonry, the thermal mass of the plaster or the floor, and so it's like a big battery, and that energy stays longer, and so the buildings require a lot less heat, and they also stay cooler longer in the summertime.
Yeah, and that's the purpose of them, to reduce the operating costs of those properties at that point. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I've seen people, put in beautiful stoves like the Kauflichen stoves, those Swedish,
and Kauflichen and all those,
And then they go so far as to put in radiant floor heat, and they never turn on the radiant floor heat. They never need it. I mean, it just overwhelms them. So
I have a radiant floor system which has 4 circuits, but only one of them is ever turned on.
Yeah. So we're talking, by the way, with Jim Reiland from Many Hands Builders. Okay, so you build these types of construction out of there. So I'm curious as to how are you busy with this? I mean, how many can you build? How long does it take to build one of these a straw bale home? And how many are you doing?
Okay, so it takes as long to build a straw bale structure as any other building. They're typically not knocked off in 2 months like you might see in a subdivision where somebody's building a tract house. It's usually a 5 to 6 month or longer building period. And ideally, you start building in the spring and you're done by the time the snow flies, because the plastering that goes on the exterior especially, but on the inside too, really can't get frozen. It can't freeze. So you want to be off that job site by the time November rolls around.
Probably would be good there. Yeah. You ever been in one of those, Joe?
I not that I can remember specifically, but I'm a windows guy. I like big windows. Is there any difference in the structure or the composition of the straw home that would would be disadvantaged to having my big windows?
None.
Yeah. And you can have
Good answer.
skylights.
Right. No, so
Another good answer.
Yeah.
That- well, both of those, yeah.
straw bale buildings, like
I love-
any other building,
yeah.
has windows, doors, floors, bathrooms, kitchens, everything like that. It just happens to have really thick walls.
But the roof
Right.
isn't built out of straw.
Generally not.
Typically, you do SIP panel, perhaps.
You could do SIP panels. More people, I think, are using conventional insulation like cellulose or fiberglass or Roxol wool is a good choice, especially when you're living in a high fire area where you want an insulation system that has a very high ignition temperature. You don't want it to burn.
Yeah, you want
And
to
there was
do
a
that.
home that was built in Phoenix, Oregon, and it was one of the first straw bale homes I did on one of my TV shows called
Okay.
Oregon Green Homes.
Right.
And the folks that built that home did it themselves. It took them 2 years
Yeah.
because they were trying to do it themselves. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful home, over the top.
What about
I
the
think I
cost?
remodeled that home
You did.
recently.
Did you? Yeah.
What about the cost of these, Jim? I mean, that's one of the drawbacks. Every time you talk to people about a green home or green construction, they immediately go, it costs too much money.
Right.
Is that the straw bales in that same way, or what's the cost differential, or what? How do you tell people about that?
Sure. If it's entirely contractor built, then it's probably going to be the same price as a green home because there's a lot more attention to detail. The material cost might be quite low because if you're getting your plaster from the mud in Medford, which makes fabulous plaster, by the way,
Really?
it's literally dirt cheap. But the application,
Yeah.
putting it on the walls, can be a little more expensive. Straw is very inexpensive. It sells for $7 or $8 a bale delivered from this area, so it can be locally grown. So it's the material costs are not where it's at. It's really the labor cost, and that same is true with green building too. It's really the attention to sealing it, making sure you get your layering right, putting on your rain screens properly, things like that.
Because if you don't do that, the whole thing, then you lose whatever you've been trying to do. So, in other words, you need to have someone like you who knows what you're doing to put something like that together.
Good idea.
Well, that always works somehow to have someone who knows what they're doing to
Well,
help you
someone
there.
in the design process should be familiar with it at the very
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've got a break coming up here. The Real Estate Show continues here on KCMX. We're coming right back after this. And welcome back to the Real Estate Show. March 31st is our date. Pete Belcasser and Joe Brett, the Real Estate Guys, with you. Thanks for joining us today. Don't forget, you can check out any of our past shows at realestateshowOregon.com. That's our website. And as you know, we've gone to video with these things, so we look at you a little bit different. You can see us for the first time versus as well as on radio.
And our guests.
It's different, and that's why we wanted Don McCoy to be here today so he can experience this
This is
radio video world. we
pretty
call it.
intense all at once at the same time. Oh my God.
But only I can see what the viewers are seeing
Yeah.
over here. So
Anyway, so
you guys have to trust me.
Anyway, so check those shows out.
It's a good side.
There's some really great shows on there, and of course, good ones coming up as well. Today, we're talking with Don McCoy, who's a broker with John L. Scott, and Jim Reiland, who's a contractor from, we get it right, Many Hands Builders, who we're talking about green construction, especially straw bales. I'm curious. This whole honor, I just don't get why people are not more interested in it, and we don't see more of it. That always over the years.
Might
Don't
be
you
we
think we've
haven't
said
done
that?
enough shows on it.
Well, people know what's out there. I think it's the
We're helping
builders.
anyway.
It's builders that maybe are the ones not pushing those kinds of things, right? You think?
I think for green built homes, straw bale was probably one of the very first green built types here in Southern Oregon, right, Jim?
Well, it easily seals because that plaster that goes on the inside and outside gives you a monolithic thermal and air barrier. So it's really easy to seal these up. So it automatically became pretty efficient from the get-go. You can't have an inefficient straw bale structure if it's not sealed well, if the windows and doors leak, if you have a big hole in your area where you have a smoke or a chimney coming up through the roof, things like that. But for the most part, the wall assembly itself is really efficient.
I want to talk to you about not so much sealing, but in the future of this, the appliances that we see, the smart homes that we see. I mean, that's the next greatest and latest things, and all these can contribute and go into your homes as well.
Sure, there's no reason not to. I mean, I've got all the smart appliances in my straw bale house. They're just lend to the efficiency.
They make them better. So you don't pay any utilities, do you?
Well, I just started with solar power generation this month, so we'll find out if that's good.
Yeah. Solar power generation.
Yeah, we're
just like you
doing-
started out of
We
that.
did photoelectric panels on one of our buildings.
That's pretty cool. How's that working?
I don't know yet. Haven't turned it on.
Oh,
It's brand new.
and you also do rain catchment.
Yeah.
And some of our longtime listeners may remember, Joe, the Jackson Soil Water Conservation District was in here for many years. And we learned about all the different types of rain systems, cisterns.
Things that individual property owners can do even in the midst of a subdivision in the middle of the city, like myself.
That's
Yeah,
very
rain-
good. Yes, you got that.
That's
That was really
very
good,
good.
Joe.
Nice segue. The thing about rainwater catch systems is it got so controversial.
Yeah,
People got the
why?
idea that you couldn't collect water on your own property for some reason.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that shifted, but Jim, you know the
Yeah, it
details.
was just not really good reporting on an incident in Jackson County where somebody was collecting running water off of the
Right,
land
right.
in a pond. And
Right.
once it hits the ground, it belongs to the state,
Right.
all of us.
Right.
But if it hits your roof and you put it into a container of some kind first, like a barrel or a tank, it's yours.
Now, why don't you say that again so people understand that when rain comes and hits the ground and rolls across your property, it belongs to the
You gotta-
people of Oregon,
You have to
right?
call Kate Brown to use it.
Right, unless you have a water right. If you have a water
if
right,
you have a water right,
you
that's
can do
different. But
It's
that's
just
generally
like
what that
That's
is.
almost funny.
But if I catch water before it hits the ground, I can do what I want with it.
That's correct.
Isn't that there was a business that had Oregon rain? You know that they caught rainwater before it touched the ground in Salem somewhere. I don't know if they still have that business there or not, but that was interesting. So that's what we're facing here. The question that so many people have in rain catchment systems is, I have one barrel, I'm going to fill it up, it's going to be full, and the first rain comes and I don't use it anymore, it doesn't work. So,
It'll be full in the first 5 minutes.
For the first 5
Thanks for
minutes,
the-
yeah,
just
right.
one barrel.
yeah.
So the average, you got to think about this in terms of how much water you can collect in a year. And most roofs, 1,000 square feet of roof is going to
Yeah.
collect tens of thousands of
Mhm.
gallons in
Of
an average
water.
rainfall
Wow.
year.
Yeah.
So you need to store. Storage is our big challenge because we get all that rain from November through May, and then
Right.
nothing. When we need it is when
Right,
we
right.
have to have that
So
storage.
it's
for
the
it.
storage issues that so
Correct.
many people have over that, is the kind of the
Right.
blocking, the mindset to block that.
Right.
Well, that makes sense because I have that same issue. But I've seen lots of, one of the things that we've seen a lot more of out in the rural areas, especially, you can do them in town, are large, holding tanks now.
Mhm.
2,000 gallons is not unusual to see on an urban backyard.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's coming,
There
right?
was a green-built home right over off of Kings Highway that I was involved in the building of that, and they put a really large system in, and too large for the size of the roof, just what you're saying, and so it was overkill. But I think one of the more efficient type of catchment systems that I've seen, so you don't have to dig a hole and put a tank in the ground, is the bladder systems. People put them right under their porch.
Wow.
Bla-
And,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
fills right up
What-
underneath the porch, and then they have ways
Say
to
that
go
again.
ahead.
Say that again. A bladder system. You mean you're laying it
It's a-
down a big.
How would you describe it, Jim?
Okay.
Think about it like a gigantic air mattress that doesn't have anything in it, and the gutters are plumb to it. And as the rain falls on the roof, goes through the gutters down the downspout, and then it fills up this big vinyl bag.
So like it would be something like under my deck, Joey. I could have like under my deck
Yeah,
where
well,
the
you
water
got some
would
room
go.
under there.
We could really do that, couldn't
And you
you?
pay more for water probably than anybody
Well,
in this room.
Well, I was going to say the reason people in Medford don't use rainwater systems is water's so cheap for you
But if you
all.
use the bladder system, it turns into a water bed at night.
Wow. And you can
For
sleep
your entire
outside.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
Or for your
right,
or for
right
the
outside
That's
in
a
the
animals.
selling
summertime.
point.
Yeah.
That's a
The
selling
one
point.
drawback to it is most porches or patios or decks have a lot of posts and piers under them.
Right.
These bags can't squeeze around those, so you have
Okay.
to size them right or have very large support joists for those decks.
But you're saying there's different types of holding
Mhm.
now,
Sure.
not necessarily the big tanks, but you have other ways of doing
Underground
it.
concrete tanks,
Underground.
plastic tanks, above ground steel tanks, underground fiberglass tanks, the bladder system Don mentioned. There's all kinds of ways to store water.
Uh-huh.
And it's all tapped into your landscaping needs
And that's it.
and your
yeah.
garden,
Yeah.
and
Which is
you
the-
can put timers
And
run
that's the
by
best
solar.
place place for it is irrigation, because once you want to drink it, then you have to do a lot more filtering and purification.
And water is such a critical resource. How about if we were able to store efficiently and use rainwater for all our landscaping and just relieve the needs? Then the needs that we have inside our household are really not going to strain the system as we have now. And there are water shortages sometimes in Ashland. They see when the reservoir gets low and they have to go into voluntary restrictions sometimes, and the amount of water that they use.
Well,
that's a really fine. Well, you can relieve a lot of the pressure on what you need inside to take care of your basic necessities, really.
I'm just surprised we just don't have many more. Do you see many, Don, rain systems around? I've seen a few, not a lot.
Yeah, here and there. You know, some people have gone to the barrels, and there's really nice looking barrels.
Yeah.
And it's just something to supplement a little bit. But it sure doesn't last long when you start trying to water your garden and things like that.
But Jim, you're right. When the amount of water that comes off a roof is shocking. I had a friend who had a barn. They put 2,500 square foot room, had a 2,500 gallon storage tank. They were so thrilled with, and the first rainstorm came, that thing overflowed. It was rolling down the hill.
Most of the systems I install are 20,000 gallons.
20,000 gallons.
They're quite large.
Wow. Because if you're going to do it, you want to do it where you've got enough water, as you say. Otherwise, when you need it, you're out because you don't get any more rain from so many months.
It's more difficult to do in an urban area where your yards are small, unless it's integrated into the building design, where the basement actually is a cistern or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they do that in some countries, because that's the only way they can get clean water.
Yeah.
But here we mostly are just putting tanks out in the backyard or on the back 40 or wherever the barn roof is.
Yeah, no,
that's easy
or,
to do.
Or freshen up the pool water every couple of weeks in my little 3-foot pool.
Actually, in Hawaii, a lot of people do capture their rain from their pools.
Well, in Bermuda, those places you don't need to capture rainwater to drink. It goes into cisterns where you drink it from.
Right,
so
that's right.
we're so blessed with
quite
what
a
we have
resource.
here.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
But yet it's a precious resource, and treating it better is probably a smart thing to do. And I've never done that. We could get Joe to do it at his house, but the water's so cheap in Medford, it doesn't matter. That's really the issue. In Ashland, it's not. I mean, I see more of them there because water's so much more expensive.
And it's 10 miles, basically 10 miles apart, and we have that different strain on our water resources within our own region and community.
Have you seen that demand change over the years as we've gone into some drought years, Jim, or has that just stayed flat? Some people say yes, some people no.
It depends on if you have access to what your access to water is. If you have agricultural rights to water, then probably you're not going to install a rainwater system.
No.
But if you don't have that and you want to be conscientious about water use, you can use your well or city water for some things, and you would use the rainwater for irrigation, your lawn, your trees, your garden.
Yeah, and I wonder if could you grow cannabis with that? With storing water that way?
Many people do.
That's what they're doing. They're installing they have the 20,000 gallon catchment systems for water to water that because they don't have irrigation. So you can do that, and we're seeing that as well.
Yeah.
Boy, it's fascinating. It's fascinating stuff what people can do with water and what they want to do with water.
So imagine a beautiful straw bale home with its own rainwater catchment system. Wouldn't that be something?
Not made of straw bales, though.
Oh yeah.
That would be a bad idea.
And then you talked about net zero energy. So a lot of folks maybe don't get what that is, but that's basically a house that produces enough energy in its solar, wind, or geothermal energy to run itself,
right,
without outside sources, without utility companies coming in.
Yeah.
So do they let you do that?
Huh?
Does Cape Brown let you do that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You bet. In fact, if you lived in California, we were talking earlier about how many people want to move here. In the year 2020, there's a net zero 2020 law.
Yes, there is. And we have talked about it.
All
Washington and California both have that in the new construction beginning in 2020 and 2030. I think.
Well, 2020 in California, I'm not sure about Washington.
I think Washington was a little bit later than that, but 2020 in California, that's going to change. See, that's going to change the way every builder does it, Don. And why aren't we doing that now?
Yeah.
I guess that's the thing we're not seeing.
We've
much
always
of that,
talked about being solar ready, and basically that's what this is being solar ready. In other words, when you build a new constructed home, you make sure you plumb it and prepare it for the day you put solar on it. Doesn't mean you do it right then and there, the day the home's finished being constructed. It's for a future time,
Right.
and especially when it becomes more feasible and affordable.
Right. And it also means that if you have the opportunity to use the sun for passive solar, boy, that's huge because it's free.
It's free.
My house has, and my workshop are both straw bale. They have almost no. My workshop never gets any heat at all. It's never been below 55 degrees,
Yeah.
and I get 15-degree nights where I live all the time.
Well. See, these are the things that are out there with new opportunities, especially in new construction.
But what if,
you know,
what if you're allergic to straw and you get hay fever?
I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, have somebody else build it for you. But once the plaster's on the wall, it's sealed.
Okay,
Oh, it's
so
sealed.
it's all sealed
Yeah.
up.
Oh, that's true.
But plaster cracks with settling. And so how's that ongoing maintenance factor in actual construction?
I haven't seen that as much as
Not as much.
Yeah, it's.
As much
I've
as you
not
think.
seen that really.
Okay.
You do get plaster developing around certain stress areas, but usually they're not through cracks. They don't go all the way to the bales themselves.
But they're sealed and you don't have utility costs are about zero, which is really good. We got a break coming up here in the real estate show here on KCMX. It's Easter weekend. We're glad you've joined us here. We got one more segment to go. When we come back, we're going to give you tips for preparing your house for sale. It's springtime, spring cleanup, time to get going. Can't put it off anymore. We're coming right back after this. And welcome back to the Real Estate Show here on KCMX. Pete Balcaster and Joe Brett, the Real Estate Guys, with you. Don't forget you can check out any of our past shows at realestateshoworegon.com. They're all out there. Some terrific shows which cover so much of this real estate market as we've gone into, my goodness, 2018, and we're a quarter of the year into it. You know that? Can you believe that? Yeah.
Easter already.
What's a quarter of the month into it anyway? Today on the Real Estate Show, we're talking with Don McCoy here. He's a broker with John L. Scott. He's been on our show many times before, and is an author of a real estate book. We're going to let him tell you about that in just a couple of minutes. And Jim Reiland, who is a contractor here in the Valley, specializing in straw bale construction for many hands builders. You've been doing that. You're kind of like the preeminent guy, aren't you, Jim? I want to come and see you.
Well, yes, I guess there aren't that many people who do what I do.
Right.
And I've been involved in this technology for about 20 years. So it's
It has a technology. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And as these are going to be like babies to you, these homes that you design and build and then watch over time. And what a great opportunity to chart their performance, to see if they meet the expectations that you had for them, and just watch them perform over time. That's 20 years now.
It is exciting, but we're changing things all the time. In fact, the new Oregon code adopted last year takes effect this summer.
Okay.
Is a reflection of how much things have changed since 20 years ago when the first Oregon
Right,
code came into
absolutely.
effect.
And most construction today, and I don't mean to belittle like someone who's out building, because most of the code is almost a green construction code anyway. Isn't it? I mean,
yes,
a lot of it is.
It's a reflection of our understanding that if 40% of the energy that we use in this country goes into heating and cooling and lighting homes.
Yeah.
So if you can reduce that by a lot, that's a huge hit.
It's a huge amount. There's no question about that. So we'll see. So Don, tell us about your book, because what I love about that is, so many of us talk about we're going to write our own book sometime about something. Dawn has actually done it.
Right? I woke up one morning, I said, I got to get this done. And a year later, it was finally finished. Writing a book is not easy.
No, that's why
it is a pain.
Yeah.
You have to stay focused, and you got to think all your thoughts through, and that's hard to do in today's little soundbite world, But anyway, I wrote a book. It's called Practical Ideas on Selling Your Home. And it's short, succinct, and simple. It's about 60 pages long now. And folks, you can get it for free. Just go to my website, donmccoyrealestate.com, and it's right on the front page, and you can download it, and it's right there for you. Or you can send me an email, and I'll mail you one.
Yeah.
It's actually a hard copy, nice soft paper book. They're at the printers right now, or I'd be showing you one. But I'm in my second printing already.
Excellent.
Really? Really?
I print 10 at a time. No, a few more than that, but not many more.
Well,
but it's perfect because I can change, add to it, update it.
Yeah.
And folks, you need to read chapter 4. It's not the kind of book you read from the first chapter to the very last.
Yeah.
Typically, you
different
look through
segments.
the chapters
Okay.
and you pick the one that is most pertinent, the one that you really need. And so chapter 4 is the escrow selling process.
Escrow selling process.
Very important, Because a lot of sellers going, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next?
Right.
And maybe their realtor's on the ball and lets them know, maybe not.
Maybe not.
The other thing that's really important and mostly focused on is preparing to sell your home.
Yep.
And what kinds of things you need to pay attention to. And let's
All
cover
right.
some of them.
Okay. Joe, this is for you. No, this is for all of us, actually. This is from the National Association of Realtors. It goes 10 tips to improve your house's curb appeal right now. Even if you're not selling it, just to make it look better, right? What do you think some of those might be?
Number 10 is pull that big dang hedge out that's in front of your sidewalk.
Anyway, okay.
That was my own.
Yeah, that was for you. Give your entry a facelift with either a new coat of paint or a new front door. Right? That's a big smart. Don't forget to landscape it. Right? Your yard. A well-groomed lawn shows buyers that the home was taken care of. Right?
Right.
That's a good tip there.
Landscaping means just, mow the grass.
Yeah. Make sure all exterior lights are in working order. Yes.
Nope.
I'm working on that one at my house. Wash all windows inside and out. I have 17. I have so many windows I have at my house. My arms are so sore of washing windows, but I'm doing that inside and out. The vinyl that's on those windows to be clean. It's just shocking how much prettier it looks. I think because buyers are coming in, they want it to be what, Don? Move in ready. They want it to be clean, right? All those kinds of things out of that. Other things about that, let's see, clean out your garage.
Good luck.
Nobody does that. See, depending on the time of the year, with a put flowers in. Yeah, the deer will eat all mine, but doesn't matter. Remove any lawn ornaments. Those things that you have all over your yard that you think are pretty, get rid of them. Yeah. I got them all out of my yard. I got nothing left in there.
Cluttery to other people.
Yeah. Replace worn out welcome mat with a new mat. Paint or replace the street numbers to make them more vibrant and pop out. And power wash any outdoor surfaces to give them a new feel. That's not expensive to do, right?
No.
And
in your elbow grease.
Yeah, and in your house, Don, okay, clean everything. I love that one. Clean it all. Yeah. Wash the walls.
Right. And here's one that a lot of folks might not think about, and that is the seller, before, once you get into escrow, go ahead and get a home warranty.
Yes.
Get a home warranty, because you never know, that dishwasher could go out, that the heating system could need repaired at the last minute. And you can actually have that home warranty, that insurance, effective while it's still in escrow.
Right, and it covers you, and it can be transferred to the new owner, which is very, very true. I'm doing that. That's exactly what I'm doing in my house, offering that thing. Other things in your house, give every room a purpose, okay? Let the light in. In other words, open your drapes, get rid of those horrible window coverings that you hate. Get rid of them. Get them out of there. Unclutter your house. That's probably number one. Unclutter it. We have too much stuff. We all know that, right? Fresh paint and new carpet are the top two things you can do to help your sale. That's pretty interesting. Organize the kitchen. In other words, get rid of crap on your kitchen. You don't need it on there, right? Put it away. Make it look better. Let's see. Before your home is shown, empty all trash bins and hide the dirty laundry. That makes sense. Make sure all doors open and close smoothly. Don't creak or crash and do things like that. And replace all light bulbs with new ones. Yeah. Those are all good tips.
The other one is cat boxes and bird cages. Make sure those are clean and always kept clean.
What about the smell in the house?
That's the point.
Should you put some fragrances in there, Don? Do you do that? Make it smell? Or does that matter?
Instead of making cookies or something.
Yeah. I don't know about those kind of things. Wait, those are just some tips that you need to go on. Right?
Was that a tips to sell your home list, or was that my spring to-do list?
Yeah, well, it works both ways.
Because I would get after each and every one of those if Major League Baseball didn't have started already this week, and now my time is compromised. But I'll get to it.
I think back in the old days, people did spring cleaning. They literally took everything out of their houses and did that.
Law.
Right? Now we don't do that. Now we're talking about getting it ready to sell. Anyway, it's amazing how it works, and it comes in handy. Anyway, we're almost out of time here today. So, Dawn, just kind of give you the last word along with Jim here. What do you see the next month? It's going to be a busy month. April's going to be a very busy real estate month.
Based on what I'm seeing, more and more people are starting to interrogate the market. They're going to, just in my own little corner of the world, they're going to my website and they're looking up a market analysis for their property. And it's happening a lot every day. 3, 4, 5 of them are going
Good
in.
news.
typing in their address and coming back with a nice market analysis of what's going on in their neighborhood.
And part of the concern
And it's really picked up is the point.
Yeah.
So more and more folks are thinking. And the other thing I noticed is that folks that have sold their properties back in 2001 to 2007 are starting to come back onto the market again.
Absolutely, because they're above water. They have equity back in their homes. That's happening all over in many neighborhoods.
And they're starting to look again.
All right,
we need to
and how can we get, Jim, how can someone find you if someone wants to get a hold of you to talk further about straw bale homes?
Visit my website, manyhandsbuilders.com.
Manyhandsbuilders.com. Absolutely. Well, good luck with you. I want to come and see some of the buildings that you've done. I'd love to see some of them. I think people would be shocked at how beautiful and how efficient straw bale homes and alternative housing can be. All right, that'll do it for the real estate show here today on the 31st of March. It's Easter weekend. For Pete and Joe, for Jim and Don and McCoy as well. Have a great week, everybody. God bless you all. We'll talk to you next Saturday right back here on the real estate show on KCMX.